Okay, this is a private pilot oral exam guide going over aircraft systems. Number 105. Which flight instruments are part of the pitot-static system? Typically, the airspeed indicator, vertical speed indicator, and altimeter are the flight instruments in the pitot-static system. 106. Which instruments are driven by a vacuum pump? Typically, the gyros in the altitude indicator and heading indicator are driven by the vacuum system. 107. What are the definitions of 4 types of airspeeds? Indicated airspeed is what is read on the airspeed indicator. Calibrated airspeed is determined by engineers and has no practical use for pilots. However, many performance charts are listed in calibrated airspeed, and a chart that gives indicated versus calibrated must be used to determine the indicated airspeed. True airspeed is calibrated airspeed or indicated airspeed corrected for non-standard temperature and pressure. True airspeed at high densities are higher than shown on the airspeed indicator due to the higher density altitude, which means less dense air. Ground speed is the actual speed in which you are moving over the ground. 108. Define the different types of altitude. Altitude types include indicated, true, pressure, absolute, and density. Indicated altitude is read directly from the altimeter after it is set to the local altimeter setting. Excuse me. True altitude is the vertical distance of the aircraft above sea level. Pressure altitude is the altitude indicated on the altimeter when the altimeter setting is adjusted to standard pressure. It is also indicated altitude or actual altitude adjusted for non-standard pressure. Absolute altitude is the height of the aircraft above the surrounding terrain, above the ground level, or AGL. Density altitude is pressure altitude corrected for non-standard temperature. 109. How does the vertical speed indicator work? The VSI is a sealed case with a calibrated leak and a diaphragm inside. Slight difference in air pressure expands or contracts the diaphragm that is linked to the needles on the face of the instrument. 110. How does the altimeter work? As the plane ascends or descends, the changing atmospheric pressure allows the aneroid wafers inside the altimeter to expand or contract. This expansion-contraction is mechanically geared to rotate the needles on the face of the instrument. Number 111. How does the airspeed indicator work? The airspeed indicator takes the difference between the ram air pressure from the pitot tube and the static pressure from the static vents and converts this pressure into indicated airspeed. Number 112. How do the gyroscopic instruments work? Gyroscopic instruments work on the principle of rigidity in space. A vacuum pump or electrical power source spins a gyro in the instrument at a high rate of speed, thus keeping it in rigid space. If a force is applied, then precession happens 90 degrees ahead of the force. Number 113. What errors are magnetic compasses subject to? A magnetic compass are subject to magnetic variation, northerly and southerly turning, acceleration, and compass card oscillation errors. Number 114. What is magnetic variation? Magnetic variation is the difference in degrees between true and magnetic north. Although the magnetic field of the Earth lies roughly north and south, the Earth's magnetic poles do not coincide with its geographic poles, which are used in construction of aeronautical charts. Number 115. What is magnetic dip? Magnetic dip is the tendency of the compass needles to point down as well as point to the magnetic pole. The resultant error is known as dip error. It's the greatest at the poles and 0 at magnetic equator. It causes northerly and southerly turning errors and acceleration errors. Number 116. What is northerly and southerly turning error? Northerly and southerly turning error is the most pronounced of the dip errors. If the airplane is on a northerly heading and turns east or west, the compass will lag. If the airplane is on a southerly heading and turns east or west, the compass will lead the actual airplane heading. Remember, north lags, south leads. Number 117. What is acceleration error? Acceleration error is also due to the dip of the Earth's magnetic field. Because the compass is mounted like a pendulum, the aft end of the compass card is tilted upward when accelerating and downward when decelerating during changes of airspeed. When on east or west headings, acceleration causes compasses to indicate a turn to the north. Deceleration causes compasses to indicate a turn to the south. ANDS, ANDS, accelerate north, decelerate south. Number 118. What is a compass card oscillation? Compass card oscillations occur resulting from erratic movement of the compass card, which may be caused by turbulence or abrupt flight control movement. Number 119. What is the purpose of a magneto? Why are they using 2 magnetos in airplane engines? A magneto provides electrical current to the sparks. Most general aviation engines have 2 magnetos because there are 2 spark plugs per cylinder. Each magneto provides current to 1 set of spark plugs. The result is a redundant system and also better performance. Number 120. What is the function of the mixture control? The mixture controls the amount of fuel going to the carburetor or cylinders. It makes for better fuel efficiency, less wear on the spark plugs, and a more efficient engine. Number 121. What is the purpose of a carburetor? What is one of its limitations? A carburetor is where the fuel mixes with the air before it is sent to the cylinders. It is subject to induction icing. Number 122. How does the fuel system work on this airplane? How does the electrical system work? And how do the brakes work? Learn how all the systems work on your airplane, consult your POH, and complete the worksheets on page 15 and 16. Number 123. When making power adjustments with a constant speed propeller, what should be changed first? When making power adjustments with a constant speed propeller, it is important to keep the manifold pressure setting below the RPM setting. When decreasing power, always reduce manifold pressure before reducing RPM. When increasing power, always increase RPM before increasing manifold pressure. Number 124. What does the throttle control on an aircraft with a constant speed propeller? What does the propeller control operate? The throttle controls manifold pressure, and the propeller control operates RPM with a constant speed propeller. Number 125. What are the steps in hand propping an airplane? Hand propping requires 2 people, one at the controls and the other at the propeller. It is vital that both people be trained and experienced in hand propping technique. The person sitting behind the controls should have the brakes firmly held, the throttle positioned for start, both mags switched to on. The person propping the airplane should yell, "Brakes on, throttle cracked, switched to on." The person behind the controls should reply in kind. Then the person propping the plane should verify that the brakes are set by pushing firmly on the propeller close to the spinner. with his or her fingers positioned just on the trailing edge of the propeller. The person propping should pull forcefully down and away from the propeller arc. Number 126, what are the 4 cycles of a normally aspirated reciprocating engine? Intake, compression, power, and exhaust.